You're listening to Squatch Talks Podcast. Real stories and real encounters told by real researchers. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Welcome back. We are live on Squatch Talks Podcast. How's everybody?
Doing great.
Doing great. Yourself, Eric?
Oh, better and better, man. I just got back from the forest. How can I be anything but, you know? And hey, tonight is a special night.
Awesome.
We are live streaming our Squatch Talks podcast on our new Squatch Talks podcast Facebook page, right? And Nathan and Brian are here with me, and we have a special guest tonight, Eric Mintel, who by day is a jazz musician. He has the Eric Mintel Jazz Quartet, and then by night is a paranormal investigator, right? And even later by night.
Very late.
So we're excited to have you on as our first guest in the new stratosphere, if you will. So the thing I wanted to start off by saying is simply I wanted to take a moment to take care of some business and to thank some of the people that have helped us come up to this point. And first off, my friend Art, who designed the page Nasbro many years ago, back I think in 2012 or 13, and has helped me to promote this podcast as a result by allowing me to piggyback off of it in the beginning. I want to thank all our viewers and followers and subscribers, right? And for coming along with us, thus far in the journey. And hopefully they'll continue to share us and watch. I got to thank Cameron Buckner from Dixie Cryptids podcast, right?
Yeah, he helped us out quite a bit.
He definitely gave us a plug, and hopefully he'll be so kind as to have us on another time in the near future, right? Just trying to think if I'm leaving anybody out. I want to thank, of course, my co-hosts Nathan and Brian for being so great at this, and
we're great.
Helping me look good,
Well, we also like to thank you for kind of spearheading this whole project and coming together with us, and we're really happy to be part of your team here. Well, it's great to have you on as well, Eric.
Thanks. We do a lot together, and we've become really like brothers, over the years. So what better way to go about it,
Exactly.
And getting back to our guest, Eric, I mean, we met, 2-3 years ago?
Yeah, about 2 years ago in July of, our investigation the first investigation was July of 2020, but we met
back in January, actually, of 2020.
You came on my show.
To the studio.
In the studio at Princeton Television, which is now Central New Jersey Network, which has even a wider coverage now, but that was a lot of fun. I mean, you came on the show and Bill Burns was there with us that day. And Bill was really impressed with all of the things that you came out, and he thought, and I was too. I mean, you had the castings, you had the hair samples, and we showed all this different, evidence that you've gotten in the Pine Barrens, just in the Pine Barrens alone, and some other areas too. But the stories you were telling were so compelling. And it was really a refreshing thing. And I said that when you got off the show that day, I said, "Oh, we're definitely not done here. We're still going to keep going here."
Yeah, and we talked about getting together and doing something out in the field. Remember,
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, Bill hasn't mustered the desire, I guess you could say, to get out into the woods with us at night. But you did.
I think he's afraid. He's afraid. I mean,
it's daunting. Let me tell you.
It is. I mean, what you got, like I was just saying before we got in the air, you guys are in the field. We're in the field, and it's like to be out on site is a very daunting process, and I mean, we'll get into the particulars of some of what we went through with you guys too. But really, really great stuff. I mean, I can't wait to, talk about the paranormal parallels, which there are a lot of when it comes to Bigfoot.
Exactly. And that's why this is really a special night, because Nathan and Brian have been chomping at the bit to get into this topic. And me, I'm a flesh and blood guy, always have been. And so for me personally, it's been something that I've always been apprehensive even talking about, right? Let alone publicly. Okay. But,
Right.
recently I have had some experiences which has made me stop and say, So I'm open.
Sure.
I'm going to be the Renee of the group tonight. Okay. I'll be Renee, and we're gonna see where this takes us, and hopefully you guys can bring me over to the dark side.
Yeah.
Well, we've been putting a squeeze on you to get this out. So,
Yeah.
like you said, we've been really looking forward to it's part of who we are as researchers, when we have different kinds of experiences other than seemingly flesh and blood, it changes everything. It makes you go out into the field with a whole different outlook.
Mhm.
And that's what we're kind of excited to share tonight. So
Yeah, you said it, man. I was out there today by myself, right? And it was starting to get dark. And after I flew the drone and got some aerial footage to use in a future podcast, I took a hike through this swampy ghost foresty area. We call it the ghost forest. Okay. And with the woods alone, it's getting a little creepy with the sun setting in the background. I can barely see it peeking through the trees. And it can get definitely. I was putting out good energy is what I'm trying to get at. I was saying, hey, I'm here, come play with me. I'm not here to harm you. I was actually trying to put out this and project this positivity, right? I have no weapons. So
Yeah.
basically I was a sitting duck.
yeah.
So
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, your approach to your investigations is unique, and I mean, everybody has their own different approach to this. So, I'd love to hear what Brian and Nathan have to say about all these different things that we want to talk about. So go ahead, guys.
Yeah. So I don't know who wants to, start with what, but I mean, we're just talking paranormal parallels, as Brian, I think, coined the phrase,
Right.
formerly known as the woo factor. Okay. I always thought of it as woo. And, again, I don't put down anybody's opinions or suggestions or ideas, right? I've always been open to the other possibilities.
Sure.
So I'm very respectful in that manner. And of course, I'm open to hearing what other people have to say. So this is a great opportunity for me to kind of kick back and listen to what you guys are saying, and we'll see where it takes us. Okay. So I'm going to open it up to the floor here and see who wants to start.
I don't know. You want to start, Brian?
Well, since you spoke first, Nate, I'll let you go.
Okay. Well, my first entrance into the woo, I was in Kentucky, and it's when I saw eye shine. It was way across the field. I'm sorry, it was a hollow. I think there was about 15 people up on this little level place, and we two guys, me and Greg, we walked down around the back down a logging trail, and we were probably looking across the ravine, maybe, I don't know, 100 yards, and in the black of nothingness next to the trees, you could see these two red eyes light up. I mean, they looked oblong. They really did. I actually had to grab a hold of him because I almost went down on my knees because it shocked me that much to even see it. I mean, that was my first experience personally seeing that, the eye shine, as they call it.
How long did it last?
I'm thinking maybe 15, 20 seconds.
Wow.
It felt like an eternity.
And it was a constant, and the lights were constant, right? They were just,
right.
They were, okay.
Yeah, it was like they just came on and then blinked off, and then they were gone.
Wow.
Did you get the impression that something had maybe turned its head to, show you this illumination, or did it seem like suddenly something just like the lights went on?
It looked like it was just all of a sudden there. It didn't look like it opened its eyes. It just looked like you turned the light on, just like that. And just like that, they went off.
That's, that's nothing. I mean, that's what a lot of reports have said, that they're just, seeing this eye shine, and we experience the same thing. So I believe what you're saying, because it's there. That's a phenomena. And the fact that you saw it from so far away,
Right.
and were able to just discern what that was, it had to be pretty bright.
It was. And that's what I always said. It had to be that far away because that was the other side of the ravine.
Mm-hmm.
Was it at least that far away? But there's nothing saying it couldn't have been closer than that. And my mind just said it had to be that far away,
Right.
because that's the closest thing that was there.
Mhm.
There was nothing else for it to stand on. So if it wasn't Bigfoot or something over there making its eyes light up, and they were good sized yet when I was looking that far away, they looked like they were still golf balls for sure.
Hmm.
So it had to be pretty big.
And what was the color?
It was red. It was I want to say it was darker than like a red headlamp. It definitely wasn't a red headlamp.
Well,
we all know what they look like.
you guys know that, with the Stan Gordon accounts of the 1973 Bigfoot flap that happened in Pennsylvania. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but there were reports of Bigfoot with these red glowing eyes, and they were 7 to 8 feet tall. But on the other spectrum of that, I know we've talked about this a lot, Eric, and we've talked about the Bigfoot UFO connection. At the same time, there were a lot of UFO sightings during the 1973-74 period where UFOs and Bigfoots were seen at the same time. So, and some of the reports are like within minutes of getting on the site of where these things were seen. So back in the day, he had a system where he got those reports in right away, and he had a team that was right there within 15 minutes of a sighting. And sometimes you'd see the eye shine, they would smell this awful smell, like as you would get up to the site. And there was even, they just had missed this Bigfoot and this UFO taking off at the same time. So this like light came down over the Bigfoot, and these creatures had like long arms almost down to their knees, like past their knees, and then the red glowing eyes. And there were a lot of reports too of these creatures looking in people's windows. And this one woman said it had eyes that looked like coals of fire. So with that, what you saw and what you guys have been experiencing, those red pinpoints of light in the woods, I really believe there is some kind of paranormal phenomena there when it comes to that creature.
Possibly. And I have a customer who actually I've spoken to you about, George Filer, who is the MUFON.
Right.
Right. And so he and I have had these discussions, and every time he brings it up, I say, you know what, George, I'm not in that camp where I believe that they're extraterrestrial. I think they're just curious creatures that if they see a UFO, they're going to go, oh, look at that, and stare up into the sky. So, hearing about stories like that obviously kind of gives you something to think about and to pause and consider. But at the same time, we both know witnesses can make mistakes. They can have, misidentifications. There's a lot of factors that goes into our research as far as determining what's real and what's not, we try to use Occam's razor in order to eliminate all variables and to come to determine what's the most likely option, right? Before I go on, though, I forgot. I didn't even really. I started by taking care of some business. But Eric Mintel is with us, and if you're just tuning in, I'd like to welcome Eric to the Squatch Talks podcast.
Oh, again.
He's a jazz musician and a very, very fine one at that on the piano. He tickles the ivories, and you can catch him on his Eric Mintel Jazz Quartet. But also is by night a paranormal researcher, and his group is called Bucks County Paranormal Investigations. So I just wanted to put BCPI out there, give you a little nod.
Thank you.
And thank you for having me on in the past as a guest. I know you reached out to me after seeing something I did, I don't know, somewhere else, and you said, hey, there could be a connection here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we have some extra tunage coming through. See, now,
Sorry about that.
this is one of the things we talk about when we're out in the field too. We always say turn off your phone and your bleep on your camera, and it's cool. Just glad it was Brian this time and not me.
So Brian, I know Brian, you had something you wanted to say too.
Oh yeah.
Well, no, I was going to ask Nate if you guys weren't shining any lights in the direction at that time, right?
No,
Right.
we were only there for maybe 20 minutes, half hour. We were still letting everything settle down. Nobody was making any noises. Nobody was doing any provocation. We were just sitting quiet, hanging out, and
Right.
like we try to break up the group sometimes. Me and Greg just walked down the trail a little bit, maybe 50 yards or so down the trail, just to break up the group, see if anything's happening. That's when I saw it.
Okay. I always question if the Sasquatch have this ability to have their eyes glow like that, I think in nature is a bioluminescence, right?
Mhm.
And from my understanding, it has to do with a high concentrated level of protein. Like say if they eat a deer liver, there's like 15,000 grams of protein or something. I'm not sure the numbers, but a high level of protein. Um, you know, so it just made me think about bioluminescence and the natural causes of possible causes of it.
Right.
And I also wanted to add about the UFO connection. With the UFOs and people being abducted and stuff like that. A Sasquatch would be a pretty unique specimen. If I was an alien and I wanted to do some research or do some kind of study, I would say, that they may be attracted to them based on that factor, other than the fact that they could be alien themselves, as being one of the possibilities. So I just kind of wanted to add that as well.
Yeah, I think Art on my show a couple of weeks ago, Eric, when you guys were on, had mentioned that same fact, and I thought that was brilliant. That what if Bigfoot is being abducted as well?
Mm-hmm.
And what you just said as far as being a perfect specimen, it's something unusual, and then being dropped back off. Maybe that's part of the connection too.
Right.
That was the theory. Maybe there's they're being abducted and then they're being brought back, but now people are seeing the UFO Bigfoot connection, but they're just being dropped off from being.
They're just being dropped off, right?
Abducted. So, yeah, I mean, there's so many variables that you could go there. And as far as the eye shine, I mean, we experienced and the same thing just when we were out in Elkhorn in October. We were investigating the Beast of Bray Road.
Okay.
And this thing, we went out there, and I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it, because I went out there, and we just went out there with the fact that, we heard the story. It's the story of this dog man type werewolf creature that stands 6 to 7 feet tall, red glowing eyes, and and I just thought, well, it's a great story. We're probably not going to see anything, but we're going to go out and do a nice documentary on this. And then we actually encountered it, which was really, that was one of the most unnerving nights. You're talking about the eye shine. We saw the same thing across the field, and it was closer. I mean, it was only like 100 yards away. But before that, we heard this howl that it was not a wolf. It was not a coyote. It was not a fox. Nothing of that. It was like a man screaming in the field, this guttural scream. So, and that just kept going. And so when we heard that, we said, oh, I could curse on this, right? We said, oh shit, we're in
I heard
deep,
you.
we're in deep shit. Yeah, right. So, and you see that on the video, that was all real stuff. I mean, that was like, we were shocked, like what we heard. Then on top of that, we hear this rustling going on behind us. Now, mind you, we are not protected one iota. We have a flashlight and that's it. We had no weapons, no nothing, no bear spray, nothing. So then we heard this rustling behind us, and it's just, we thought there was like probably 2 or 3 coming toward us, around us. And then we saw the eye shine, which was about 7 feet up in the tree line. And you could see the eyes like darting like this, like it was like going up and down.
Like
and
trying to find you, trying to make you move, trying to
exactly
figure out what's going on.
Stalking us or something.
Mm-hmm.
And you knew it wasn't a light from anything else because it's pitch black and it's completely flat out there. There's a farmer's farm way across the way, and he had lights on. That's clearly visible there. Those were his lights. They were way across, but you could see these other lights closer that are just like looking in the tree line. So then right after that, the paranormal part of this whole thing is this mist. This mist came out of nowhere in the field. It was tough to see on the video, but when we were there, it was a mist that you could see that was forming around us. And apparently this is another thing. And now I keep asking you, Eric, but you've not experienced this yet, but it's something that's accompanying a lot of these Bigfoot sightings. And I don't know if you guys have heard about that, but it's this weird mist. But what's been going on that farm, paranormal wise, is during the day, even he's got trail cams all over the place. So he has a picture of Lee, the owner, Lee Hampel. He has a picture of himself going down to this area that's had a lot of the activity. So you could clearly see there's a mist that forms around him in this picture. And there's a roadkill deer that's right below that. And Lee's there. And then the second later, the mist is gone and it's clear as a bell. So this was when Lee was putting the roadkill deer in this area. Lee leaves maybe about, I don't know, a day or maybe a day later. The mist comes up again over the deer in this one picture. And the next picture, the deer's gone and so's the mist.
No way.
So right there, that's just like, what is that? I've never heard of that. And it was just, and he's got not one, but he's got thousands of pictures of this phenomena going on. So, this is why when we were down in the Pine Barrens with you guys that night, and I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves here, but I know you guys have a lot more questions, but I mean, for us, it seems like whenever we're going into an area, all of a sudden we're getting that activity like right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And, my buddy Dominic, who is on our team, now he's a spirit medium. He's not we've looked for Bigfoot and he's done some Bigfoot investigations, but he's not like a Bigfoot researcher. Mm-hmm. When we were in Wisconsin, this was completely out of his wheelhouse. And that really freaked him out. He doesn't get freaked out, but that freaked him out. Mm-hmm. So we're going back in April to follow up on this investigation. And we've got a lot more techniques now. We're going to be fully prepared this time. And we've got a lot of new things that we're going to do to try to maybe, if we can, try to capture this thing. Not hurt it, not harm it.
Right.
But it's the other thing is Lee, the owner of the farm, has been having ongoing activity. And he's been sending me pictures since December, like ever since we left there. So it's really wild.
Well, and that kind of goes along with the whole Dogman thing with the with the Beast of Bray Road.
That's what it is. That's what I think it is. It's a Dogman or a like a pack of those, like we talked about, a family. There could be a family there, as opposed
to like a werewolf. You know what I mean? But obviously, that's something we want to maybe do a different show in the future. Okay, Dogman. Yeah. We're getting requests for Dogman,
but don't overwhelm Eric all at one time.
This is Squatch Talks. But yeah, Brian in the audience tonight says sounds like they have infrared vision. So one of the possible things we do talk about is the fact that they are able to see much more easily at night, right? And that's why they're more diurnal, right? Where they do well at night as well.
What if it's like almost like an intimidation or a defensive technique, or tactic? Yeah.
I think that's brilliant. I think that's a great idea. I mean, it could be, But guys, this thing doesn't have a heat signature. It's not even on infrared. That's the other thing. It's not showing up on these trail cams, which is the weirdest thing. It's got some kind of cloaking device. Now, Lee also put the hair under the microscope, and the hair samples are absent of the medulla.
Right.
So there's nothing there. There's nothing there. So we were talking about this, Eric, and you guys probably chime in on this too.
Right.
You know how when a deer, like you'll see a deer out in the woods and it's so blended in that you could barely see it, but it's there. Why couldn't that be the same thing with Bigfoot? It's there. We just can't see it, but it's gotten so enmeshed in its surroundings.
That's why we say they are the world champion of hide and seek.
Well, it's the same thing with a rattlesnake. You don't see it until it moves.
Until it rattles.
Even sometimes when it's rattling, you can't find it. If it sits still,
Exactly.
But there are theories though, Nathan, like Eric is saying though, about the hair and having the ability to be more translucent and to blend with the rays of light from the sun, which then causes this. It's almost like some of this new technology they have in science where they can make a cloak that actually makes you invisible, right?
Right.
And that goes back to some of this cloaking stuff that we hear about, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And this is where I admit it goes a little bit, into the woo factor for me with the cloaking and the portals and that type of talk. Okay. Right. But I'll let you continue. Sorry.
Well, this will be a great time for me to chime in with my story because it really has to do a lot with that.
There you go.
So I was doing some research about 2 years ago. It was late August. It was about almost midnight. There was an electrical storm. And I was sitting in an area that's known, what we call the Stump Dump. All right. It's in a research area. It was where, I was hosting my expedition the following month. So I was out there doing some scouting for that. And I was by myself and I was in this circular drive, so to speak. And they dump all this debris and stuff at the end of this drive. Right. So I'm parked in the middle of it and I'm sitting in a camp chair in front of the car. And I have a thermal camera, all right? I got my bionic ears, so to speak. So I have enhanced listening and thermal vision, okay? I'm looking around, and I had just looked around. I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything, and suddenly I hear this little ping in my recorder, as if something had taken a fingernail and just kind of tapped on the top of it, right? Oh. And then I didn't hear it at the time because there was a lot of background noise from the bugs and stuff going on. But in listening to the recording later, I heard these small footfalls going away from me after I hear this little ping, right? As soon as I hear these footfalls go away, I hear boom, 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 right in my direction. All right. It came out of nowhere. It was about 4 or 5 steps. I could hear it on the dirt, gravelly, surface. I saw nothing. All right. The sky was somewhat illuminated. There was a lot of heat lightning and stuff going on. And like I said, I had just looked around in my therm. There was nothing in my vicinity at all. So I hear these footsteps coming at me, 4 or 5 footsteps right in my direction. And in the recording, you can hear me go, because I thought something was going to plow into me. Oh, okay. Yeah. Nothing plowed into me. All right. But what happened was I got this tingly static type charge that I felt wisp like right through me almost. And then like on my hair standing up talking about it. And then there was nothing. There was no footfalls away. There was no movement. Immediately I grabbed my therm, I'm looking around. I stood up. Nothing in my vicinity. Wow. I was completely baffled. And I sat there in shock. And I was just talking out loud. Like I'm not, I mean no harm. I'm here to, just observe, blah, blah, blah. And I was pretty shooken up by the event, but it was my first type of thing when it comes to the woo factor. And it, but prior to that, I really had Eric's beliefs, flesh and blood. This thing eats, forages, you know, if it's there, we're just not seeing it. It's laying on the ground, it's hiding, whatever, you know. But now I get into the whole, you know, this invisible thing came charging at me, you know, and I had, yeah, it left me, it changed my whole outlook, you know. The next time I went out in the field, I carried, not that I really felt like it would do me any good, but I carried a golf club with, with me, and I didn't know why, but it was my security blanket to
Sure.
actually get the gumption to go out there in that same spot alone, you know, based on having this experience.
Did you, by any
Oh
chance,
my God.
Brian,
Well, yeah.
did you manage to locate that audio by any chance, or
I did not.
no?
No.
Okay. Well, hopefully you can maybe
Because
find it, and we can maybe edit it into the
we can
YouTube. You know, if you can find
Oh
it.
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Cool. But no, that was a scary. I remember when this happened, and you actually like called us and played it for me, and you could hear your reaction, you know, and
Oh yeah.
it was freaky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like that, what you're saying, Brian, is like what happened to us when we went with Eric and Art into the bowl down in the Pine Barrens. I mean, you know, again, this was a week after we got back from Elkhorn. So there was a lot of really wild paranormal energies happening in October. This was just wild. I also forgot to mention to you too, that night of Elkhorn, the entire power went out in Elkhorn that night. So
that's incredible.
And the other factor was Lee, I had forgot to tell you guys too, we baited that the bait area with steak bones that we had the night before. So
Good idea or not? That's the
I know,
question.
right? I know, right? I'm like, was that a good idea? But the wild thing here is Lee sends me a text the next day and says, oh, by the way, the trail cams stopped working at 5 o'clock the night of the investigation. They didn't take another picture until 7 o'clock the next morning. So there's no pictures of us out there. Like something came in and turned it off.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Oh yeah. And then, I mean, we saw a UFO go over the field. Dominic said the first thing we get out there, he had said, you know, it was kind of a cloudy night and we thought we were going to have to scrub the investigation. We thought it was going to rain. But then right over the field where we were, which I know, you know, we're going into the portal situation here, but we think we were in like some kind of a Skinwalker Ranch type situation because a lot of this stuff happened and Dominic sees the UFO go over to solid ball of light and all of a sudden it does a 45 and like just disappears. Then we heard the howl and then the mist. And then the fact that this thing didn't take any pictures, we were having electronic disturbances all night. And then the power goes out in Elkhorn that night too, which was, and it was weird because in the hotel the next day, I noticed I brought a stick back with me in my hotel room, and Dominic goes, "You brought it back with you. Put it back." So
not exactly the same as when you take something out of a haunted home or you know, abandoned house, right?
But when we were with you, Eric, down at the bowl, I mean, that changed my whole perspective on Bigfoot too, because when we were sitting there, you know, I was a believer. I totally believed
open-minded.
The Gimlin film, totally real. Some of the other stuff you see out there, you know, and you too, you know, it's like, what is this? You know, what are they doing? But that was, and then for when we were there, and Dominic is talking to Art, and we all collectively heard this whoop, and I was like blown away by that because we were like, and thank God you had that high-powered. You could hear it on my camera mic. But your high-powered microphones really picked it up, and then Heather was having a conversation with it. So that was amazing to get that.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And it's funny because we have some people watching this evening who actually have been to this location with us and had some experiences there as well. One, I had said to the group, "Hey, be nice to have a tree pushed over," you know. And 5 minutes later,
wow,
right behind one of them, a tree gets pushed over, and what do? I say, "Thank you," you know. You have to acknowledge them, you know.
Right.
And then
when we heard that whoop too, it sounded like it was kind of walking away from us, you know,
moving away. Yeah.
I wish. And then Dominic said he had heard a bigger, like
something rustling. Yeah.
That was like Mama coming toward the juvenile or something, you know. So
And it's weird because, we have these therms that we can, detect heat signatures on, and obviously we don't always see,
Right.
something there.
Brian,
Brian,
did we even have that on? I think we were just so startled. I don't even know if we did the therm. Did we? Did you do
we
that?
did. Yeah,
Okay.
we had the fireman's therm, the MSA, working that night. That was before I actually acquired this more recent piece of gear from Kevin and the AGM, which is unbelievable.
Beautiful.
Yeah, in fact, I have a picture that we can show you of what it can do, ready to go when we're ready. But
Yeah, that's right.
but yeah, no, I wanted to bring that up because, Nate, Brian had that experience at the Stump Dump. Okay. And he and I were out I guess last month. Right. And he and I were hiking down this, gated road, which a little bit further down from where the Stump Dump's located, but we both experienced something that night. He had his head, recording equipment on with the headphones. So it kind of really enhances his hearing, but also can distort, and I was looking down, we were both looking at this scuffle, and I thought I heard something coming up on us. And I quickly jumped up and said, yo, something's coming. And I turned and I picked up the therm, right? And both he and I had the thermal images. We didn't see anything, but we could hear something moving away from us. I'm even looking up in the trees, right? Thinking it's just a critter of some kind. And we didn't see anything. He thought he saw like a little brief red hot on his therm. I wound up snapping a couple of pictures, and we talked about that, right? On the last live feed, I think we did, right?
Yeah, that's a good picture. We got to recreate that, make sure we can see what it is.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll get a chance to do that, but it's going to be tough with the same temperatures, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you want to real quick, I think I can bring this up. Are you able to see that?
Yeah.
That's the graveyard. And these are the turkey tracks, okay, that Brian and I were observing. Jersey Devil tracks, as we call them.
Yeah.
That previous one, sorry, and then want to jump ahead. That's the road we were on, so you can see what kind of conditions it is. And then this one, a little blurry. I think I was shaking when I took the picture. I was really unnerved, Eric, by this.
He was.
I was freaked.
Yeah.
I was literally, I said, I'm effing shaking. Okay.
Wow.
But look at this picture. Okay. And then I was able to zoom in and capture this one.
Wow.
And that don't look like a boulder to me.
No.
And so honestly, what is that? I don't know. Okay. Let me see if I can bring it up a little. How's that? Can you see that better now?
It looks pretty.
I mean, the arm, right? It looks like
right
it's
here.
Got an arm right on the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right over here. It looks like there's an arm and then a conical head.
Yeah.
And there's variations in the temperature gradient, right?
Yeah.
Which also it makes sense, because honestly, I wouldn't expect them to be white hot because of all their thickness of their fur, their hair, the fat layers, all that stuff, the muscles. It's going to cause variations,
Going back to the paranormal aspect of this, I mean, could it be materializing?
Yeah, right. I know. And that's the thing I'm trying to say. I'm taking that off the screen. So it was a freaky experience for me. And it was one of those other instances that gets me to pause and to say what's going on and to look at things in a different light.
Especially at this location, it being probably maybe a half a mile from where, my experience happened.
And Nathan's. And that's one I wasn't shared yet.
Yeah.
Well, at this location, Nate has something else that has happened to him, and a couple other people as well that run on the paranormal side. So
yeah, two actually.
And bring up the fact, what did we do there on your expedition, Brian? We had somebody come with their gear, right? Karen?
Yeah. Yep. We had Karen and we had Mickey on both expeditions. Yep. Both are paranormal investigators, and they brought their equipment, and we set up this whole big circle of, equipment. I guess I'm not sure of the name and the terminology of the stuff, but yeah, we did a whole experiment there. And while we were doing that, our friend Nate here, I'll let him tell you what happened.
What was that we were talking to? that was just a recorder, wasn't it? We didn't have white noise or nothing. We just had recorders.
No, we were just asking questions. We were
That's
trying
right.
to invoke something to happen. So
Doing
to speak.
EVP, I think, right?
That's what you call it. That's what you call
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But everybody was sitting in a circle, and then we were all facing the recorders, and everybody's sort of waiting for something to happen there. So I wanted to keep looking for Bigfoot. So I just turned my chair around. I was still participating in what everybody was doing, but I'm Thurman and I'm looking behind me and I'm looking around, and Patty was sitting right next to me. Our good luck charm, Patty, was right there. And all of a sudden, I don't even remember how we were doing it for what, 15, 20 minutes, maybe?
At least, yeah.
I mean, it was pretty far along into what we were trying to get to happen. I think you were asking it to say something or show itself, or
I was, yeah,
come into
I
the
was really,
circle.
I was, yeah, I was like,
Come into the circle.
come to us. I was
Yeah.
just saying it over and over again.
So on my left, the shadow behind Patty stood up and walked across me. Like Eric said, that it kind of like you felt it go through you. This thing just stood up, and I fell off my chair.
Wow.
Yeah,
And
it
I
stood up.
actually said, I looked at him, I said, I'm done. I'm going back.
So you felt that like charge within you.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
It was like a shadow person. Remember,
It just looked like the shadow behind her just got bigger.
To me, I mean, just listening to you guys talk about this, I mean, I'd be staking that place out 24/7. I mean, and I'd be putting trail cams up there, everything. I mean, because that picture is really wild, Eric. I mean, there's something there.
Yeah.
Now, how far is that from where we were? Is that
that's New York State?
This is New York.
Okay, so that's a whole nother area. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a place that I was fortunate to come across for my expedition, both of my expeditions a couple of years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's it's all private, and yeah, it definitely, what makes me think there's a Bigfoot connection is that we found footprints and had other Bigfoot type experiences, just across the street from where this happened. We were camping, maybe 75 yards from there,
Wow.
So.
Now, I know you don't want to probably, divulge the location, but in Whitehall, New York, there's a very, very, there's a researcher up there, Paul Bartholomew. Lots of Bigfoot activity up there, and a huge case that happened in, I think it was 1976. And same thing with the red glowing eyes. And, this is something that has not been explained. They got castings of it that went right down to I think the local police station. They may even still have that casting. Right. There's been drawings of it, but in that area, I'm not surprised, because I'm not surprised that there's a lot of Bigfoot activity in New York State area.
The curse of Sasquatch, though, that cast is probably long gone.
That's gone.
Most of the people that were there at that time have actually passed on, and they're in the next realm.
Yes.
The only way we're going to hear from them is with a Ouija board, but
but at least they know what Sasquatch is now.
Absolutely. But one of the things, like in this area that Brian's describing at this particular location, is there was a number of different things that occurred. Nathan's being one of them, and Patty, who's watching her brother Tony, actually had something occur that was pretty spooky also. And
I was there.
Yeah, and you were there. Exactly. And he's not here to talk about it, but I mean, I think it's okay that we say he actually experienced something grabbing his leg.
Yeah.
Wow.
And when he returned to their room, he was able to see actual like marks on his leg.
Scratch marks. Wow.
Well, more like something grabs you, not scratches, more of like a bruise, if you will. Okay. But yeah, and he's a tough guy, big guy, and it definitely kind of freaked him out,
For sure.
Haven't had an experience right up the street, right in the house that we were staying in a couple of nights, and he had a really terrifying experience there as well. So I don't know, I think Nathan was the one who mentioned that there might have been at this location at some point in history a massacre of Native Americans. That who knows if that potentially has anything to do with it, right? I don't know. But
just because it's close to the same mountain range,
general location, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I know there's a lot. I know we were talking about portals, and I know it's very, you know, out there thinking for people, you know, but there are various portals in this world that are just either, you know, there's a higher magnetometer reading, electromagnetic fields are higher, you know, UFOs are seen a lot more. So I think, you know, you guys might be in one of those areas there that could have that kind of paranormal activity that's going on an ongoing basis.
I brought that up. I brought that up in one of the other episodes we did. You know, there's an energy of some sort happening there that's causing the apparition or the Sasquatch action or the UFO to be there, and it brought us there, you know. So is it a vibration of the area? Is there a different magnetic pull? You know, what's causing this to occur? Because it's drawing everybody there.
You know,
Yeah.
I've been looking into ley lines lately. Yesterday, and I'm gonna do some more research with it. But from what I saw, it looks like there is some ley lines, and for those of you that don't know, they're the energy lines that form around the Earth. In short, and those ley lines run pretty much right through my research area. They run right through Eric's research area, and if I'm not if I'm not mistaken, I believe they run through Nate's area as well.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, yeah. So I think there's some connection with these energetic lines, the mountains giving off certain types of energy, at least in our area. I know it's flat as, you know, can be down in the Pine Barrens for the most part, um, but yeah, I think there's a connection with the ley lines and, you know, and all that. I'd really love to see a study done on that.
Concept, yeah, and hey, you know, further research may determine that there is something going on.
I think let
yeah.
me ask you guys this. You know, have you noticed in the last couple of years now, obviously, you know, what we've been kind of going through with the pandemic, have you also noticed that the paranormal activity has been at an all-time high?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Everything's
everything.
amped up. Everything's
Yeah.
amped up.
And I just find that fascinating too, because, you know, there are, you know, times in you know, that we've had waves and we've had flaps of different things, but I think even more so now that you've got a lot more activity going on. Plus you've got the government now declassifying the UFOs, saying, oh wait, they are real. This has been
They're just doing that though, just to distract us, because they don't want us to look at what they're not doing in Washington. I'm sorry, because they're really not declassifying much.
there could be too. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's you know, there is a lot of distractions. I will definitely say that. But you know, but this, you know, at least now, you know, you've got. I thought it was amazing too. I saw this documentary on the Navy pilots' UFO sightings, and the one guy had said, you know, they got an upgrade on all of their technology on these on the ships, and he believes that it's his speculation that this new technology, they were able to see them much better now.
Oh, wow.
But he thought they've been there for a long time. They've just been there. Could they be probes? Maybe they're probes from another planet. They're surveying the area and they're not really piloted. Maybe they're just probes right now and they're surveying the area. Who knows? I mean, you could speculate forever on that.
Sure.
That's a disturbing thought, that it's an alien, like a, what do they call the remote Air Force that they have now? You know, now the aliens are doing it to us too.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Why do we have a Space Force? Think about that one.
Yeah.
You know,
It sounded cool.
Yeah.
So behind that.
Plus, that's where the next threat may potentially come from too.
Maybe.
For the first time I ever went to look for Bigfoot, we were out in Salt Fork, Ohio, and we went out to this field. It was the second night we were there. We're out in the middle of this open field doing their thing. There was 4 of us, and I didn't realize, like I said, this first time we ever went out. And I'm just looking up at the stars, because out there in Ohio, the stars are like dinner plates, you know. And I'm just sitting there and I'm looking up, And all of a sudden, I'm looking at these 4 stars that were in like this nice square. All of a sudden, they all went in a different direction.
Wow. Wow. How did that make you feel?
I was confused. I kept saying, did anybody else see that?
Did they? Did anybody see that?
No. Nobody else was looking up. Everybody's looking through thermals and looking at different stuff. And
Brian was with me though when we saw some UFO activity out in the field one night in the Pine Barrens.
Down in the Pine Barrens. I think we were actually in the bowl, weren't we?
Yes. Well, we were at the berm actually. Different
at the
location.
berm. Yeah.
And we both.
There was like 4 of us that saw it, right? 4 or 5 of us.
What was that now? What was that?
We had done a little couple of things where Brian stayed at base camp with Heather and Allie, and Art and I and Chris took a hike around a big loop. Okay. And we tried some back and forth provocations. We had some radio transmission issues though, so we weren't really able to keep in touch with Brian back at base camp. So as we were getting closer though, and we were returning to where we had set up, we're coming back down the dirt road towards Brian and tried a couple of little, provocations. We riled up this group of coyotes that was probably the biggest bunch I ever heard in my life. And it sounded amazing. So we, of course, stopped there for a little while and recorded that. Chris did another call or 2 to see if she can get them riled up again, but that was it. And we get back and we sit down and we're kind of like, basking in that excitement. And literally I look up and I see something going across the sky, a little dot, right? Looking like a satellite. But then I saw like what looked like a flash, like, how a camera flash, like the flash bulb that used to be on a camera would, but like, way up in the sky.
Yeah.
2,000 or 3,000 feet up in the sky. And then there was another one following the same direction right behind it. And I pointed it out, of course, and everybody looked up and was seeing this. And then they just went and took off.
Yeah, I was watching it the whole time he was, and it did about 2 or 3 of those flashes. The first one, okay? The first one that was in view, it got to a certain point, and because it was kind of going steady, it got to a certain point, and then it just went and then took off. And then there was another one on the same trajectory, emitting these same flashes of light.
Wow.
But it did not take off. It just kept going steady in the same direction as the other one. So it was, definitely not. I didn't think it was any type of man-made.
One that we're familiar with, from our military,
Yeah, I mean, this will freak you out. One night we're going over this bridge. My girlfriend and I are going over the bridge in Stockton, New Jersey, in Center Bridge, Pennsylvania, and going over what they call the Stockton Bridge into Stockton, New Jersey. This is Stockton, New Jersey, up in Bucks County, not the one that's down in South Jersey. This is more Upper Bucks. We're going over the bridge, and all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I look, and here, just like you see on the programs, 5 orange orbs appeared out of nowhere.
Wow.
And I was like, what the hell? So I'm like fumbling around for my phone. I'm trying to get a picture. Of course, the flash is on. So I got the interior of the car. But she's looking at these things and they're forming. And as they're forming, they stop and then they do like a little search pattern type thing over the water. And then one by one, they just petered out and disappeared. And I was able to get one shot. But that was the most amazing thing. And I'm still wrapping my head around it. But I was thinking initially, well, maybe these could have been Chinese lanterns or something like that, that there's a restaurant that's next door. But this was February and it was cold. And there's nobody that's going to have a wedding that, in early February. So that was not the possibility. It wasn't helicopters. These things made no sound whatsoever. And it was just these orange balls of light.
Wow.
And it was like, going back to, you guys are familiar with John Keel, the Mothman prophecies and author. He also talked about the living lights, that these lights somehow are a living entity.
Well, we experienced an orange orb light up in New York, Brian, at your expedition, I think, wasn't it? And Nathan's team, right? You guys were set up and one of the attendees had gone up the hillside from where you were hanging.
Oh, yeah.
You remember?
Yeah, that's
And-
right.
Yeah.
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 Oh,
I forgot about
that was Nathan. That's the story you told me where it went down like that.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Wild.
yeah. He was observing this, and he radioed down to Nathan's group. Hey, are you seeing this? Right, Nathan? You were there. I wasn't. So
In New York.
in New York, yeah, you guys were set up at the AT.
Oh,
Okay, that's right. Yeah, we were around the back, and that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Was,
and I forget the person's name, but he was up on the hillside alone, right? He
I
wanted to
think
get
it was
off.
Mickey.
Mickey.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Amazing.
right. And
I mean-
Mickey's the one who
I-
has the right, the paranormal connection.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And the didgeridoo.
Yeah.
He played
Yeah.
the didgeridoo out in the woods for it. It was awesome.
Are
And-
you starting to take video now, Eric? Are you doing more video? on
Well,
these-
Nathan just got his new 4K video camera, so we did attempt to do one last weekend when I was up visiting him and Terry.
Good deal. Awesome.
But yeah, and it has night vision capability. Of course, we're gonna
Yeah.
Great.
bump up the infrared capabilities as well.
Yeah.
But I before, it's been a while, and Nathan was mentioned Chris's question about there's a question for you, Eric, about since you focus more on the paranormal, any thoughts on spirits in homes?
Oh yeah. We've experienced a lot of that. I mean, we typically, I will refer, like if there's someone that's saying, hey, our house is haunted, could you come check it out? I usually refer that to somebody that's better equipped that way, of maybe saging the house or blessing the house and things like that. But I have experienced, hauntings in establishments like restaurants, bed and breakfasts, things like
Yeah.
that. So they're there. I mean, so much so that we were doing an interview with one of the servers at this restaurant who was telling me his story. And he had some great stories about some of the entities that he's seen at McCool's Red Lion Inn up in Quakertown, Pennsylvania. And
Mhm.
as we're talking to him, there was and I saw this on post-production when I was editing. There's an orb, translucent orb that just goes right between him and the camera. And it wasn't a light, it wasn't a reflection, nothing like that. And it was like, wow, this is wild. And he's telling me the story, and there it is. And we were in Georgia, and we were investigating a haunted town down in Georgia. It was called The Histories and Mysteries of Fitzgerald, Georgia. We were in an art center. And this particular art center, about a month or so before we got there, had housed African art. First of all, this art that they had there was the kind of art that by some kind of like ancestral type ceremony, they'll put the spirit of the person into that artwork.
Oh, wow.
Which was really interesting. I thought, wow, this is really cool. So we're doing an investigation of this center, and we are catching, I mean, the magnetometer is going off the charts. Electromagnetic energy, we're in a spot. So we were in this one spot, and the one person that was with us, he said, oh, that was where there was an African warrior statue in that particular area. That's where it was going off the charts there. And as I'm saying, it was right here in this area, and I'm looking at him, and on the camera and on the video, you could see clearly an orb comes right up from behind me. It just comes out of nowhere like that and then disappears.
Wow.
So we've caught a lot of that. We were in the same place. We heard a disembodied voice. So I think there's a very thin line when, between the here and there. There's a real thin veil. What it is, I don't know, but I know it's there. And to be honest with you, when I first started this in the ghost situation, I would go into this skeptically and say, okay, let's find out what's really going on here before we say, okay, everything we do is haunted or whatever.
Right.
And the more I wanted to kind of do like a scientific approach to it, but the more and more we've been doing this, and the more we've been catching on video that you could see on our videos, there's something there. There is a deeper thing happening.
Mhm.
And I don't know if the technology is getting better and better that you're able to see these things more, but it's really fascinating what we're catching. Now, I'm not saying that it's threatening. Like we said, Eric, we felt safer in the Pine Barrens than we did when we were in Elkhorn. That was pretty frightening out there.
Well, those dogmen are something. That's not something you want to mess with. Those guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we're discovering now is, yeah, there's something definitely there. So the more and more we delve into this, man, it's fascinating. You know, has it been threatening? No, except for Elkhorn. You know,
Right.
I'm gonna go back to that all the time because I'm gonna go by that. That was like the litmus test of what happened to us there.
You got Dogman out in Wisconsin, right, in Michigan areas, but we have the Jersey Devil here in
Exactly.
my neck of the woods. So that's,
Exactly.
you might have felt safe, but you were not safe.
It's there, something, and that's there, man. There's no denying it.
Well,
Yeah.
I actually deny it. But I'm a JD denier, okay? And my belief and my opinion has always been that it's a folklore tale that's been perpetuated by people having experience with Sasquatch out in the woods. They see something with red glowing eyes screaming at them, right? And it's got big arms and it's about 4 feet wide. So they think it's wings. And, I honestly believe there's sometimes substances involved, maybe alcohol or other things, that kind of distorts their ability.
Can I ask you a question too? I want to ask you, do you guys know anything else in the Pine Barrens that people have been seeing beside the Jersey Devil or Bigfoot?
Yeah, there's a Thunderbird type of creature also, I think.
But what about, has anyone ever seen like I want to say like it's like
the lizard man. I'm not ready to go there.
It's a tall, it would be like a tall, I don't want to say troll, like a troll, but like a like an
ogre. Just Travis. That's just Travis.
Like an ogre.
It's like an ogre. Yeah. Has anybody reported something like that ever? Because
not that I can recall.
The drummer in my band swears he was going through the Pine Barrens this is 76. He swears he was straight as an arrow, but he went through, he saw this huge, like an ogre type thing, like translucent type ghost. Maybe, okay. I don't know.
But again, that could just be a Bigfoot that he misidentified as an ogre, right?
Right, that could be too.
And it could have been standing in the mist, right? That you mentioned.
Yeah.
That's right. He said he went right through it, but he could have he could have passed it too.
One night, Art and I were heading back from one of our research areas, and he had to get home. And so I was kind of in a rush. We came around a turn, and we both thought we saw what looked like a sloth laying there in the road, like with dark black hair. And of course, I should have turned around and said, hey, let's go back and look. But because he had to get back by a certain time, I didn't think to do that, right? And now we're both kicking ourselves, of course, for not turning around and looking. But it looked like a sloth laying there on the ground. And who knows, it probably could have been a juvenile Bigfoot. They go down on their bellies quite often to avoid, detection from passing motorists and hikers. Right. Who knows? But again, it's one of these things you got to kind of look back on and say, oh, we messed up. Should have checked it out,
I would love to go. I would love to go back to the bowl area again with Brian and Nate and all of us. We should all go back there. And once your back's all good to go, Nate.
Yeah.
Come on. But
well, Nathan was there when Nathan was there with his team when we had all that initial activity. And like you said, remember earlier you mentioned ebbs and flows in the activity and how during the COVID pandemic, there's been some heightened levels. Art and I also had some real quiet years where we didn't have activity at some of our research areas. We were almost getting frustrated to like the point where, is this even worth it? Should we check out the Jersey Devil kind of thing, And so, this recent past year or two during this pandemic, we had a heightened activity level, right? And I just want to mention, I'm sitting back here as like the skeptic of the group, the Renee, as I mentioned. So something that really did it for me, aside from what we have already discussed, I was on Nathan's expedition, right? And he gave the investigators who were assisting him the option as to where to go that night. And I heard the name of the place and I said, that's where my team's going, And as soon as we got there, I recorded those howls, which you've heard, Eric. And pretty amazing. And you compared them to the ones that you recorded out in Wisconsin, right?
Yep.
But after those howls were recorded, and on your program that Art and I participated in, we talked about this, I didn't get the opportunity to finalize what I was saying. And you haven't heard this part, where we left part of my team on the trail halfway up the hill because we were thinking we could reach this other location, right? So me and Tony and Jeff continued on the hike, and we got up to a higher elevation, and just then the trail bends to the right, and there was a branch on the ground that had like a Y shape to it, and it was a big branch, and it was fresh, the leaves were green. Once we passed that branch, we stepped over that branch and started to bend to the right. We could no longer hear the creek in the ravine below us. The wind started whipping up. We could see our breath coming out of our mouths. It got like 20 degrees colder. Temperature drop, yeah. And this was odd, right? And so we're continuing up this trail, and we get to a certain point, and I'm thinking to myself, maybe this other attendee, Eric, I think maybe his GPS or whatever he was going by, I said, maybe it meant 1,500 in elevation, not not in distance, because we're not getting where we want to be. I said, let's stop here and try some provocation. So I radioed down to Patty and her team, do a whoop. Could not hear Patty's whoops. Okay. I tried doing a couple of knocks. They couldn't hear my knocks. Again, I mean, this is not a huge distance, but you would think we'd be able to hear each other. I did a call. They couldn't hear my call. Okay. I'm standing there with Jeff and Tony, and I looked to my left across the trail, and that's when I saw this, what looked like a headlamp, about 15 feet, I'd say, 15, 20 feet away, 8 feet up in the air, looking right at me. Okay. And I'm looking at it. I didn't say anything to the guys. I'm kind of going like this, swaying back and forth, to see if it's a star or a plane coming in my direction, right?
Yep.
I'm thinking, could this be a trail runner? I know we're near the AT. Maybe somebody's running at night with a headlamp, but it wasn't moving. It was just standing. It was just stationary right there. And I'm like, this is really strange, And then it just sunk down slowly. It didn't just drop out of sight. It just sunk down slowly and went off.
Wow.
And I turned to my right and I said to Jeff and Tony, did you guys see anything? And Tony says, I saw a flash. And I see he's sitting in his camp chair, right? And I start to say something. He goes, whoa, he goes, you guys mentioned something earlier tonight about, I don't know if I'm going to say it right. He says, being zapped. I said, yeah, he said it right. He goes, tell me what that's about. So I explained how some people experience what we consider like maybe infrasound, right? Where it makes you feel maybe twisted in your gut, or, dizzy or headaches, right? Disoriented. Yeah. There's different experiences and symptoms of it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And he said he felt like something was pressing in right between his eyes on his forehead with two fingers, to the point where, that it made him have to sit down. All right. And he couldn't explain why that was. And Jeff and I both felt twisted in our guts, like, knotted up. All right. And let me tell you, I have never had an experience like that in all my years doing this.
Wow.
And in all the places I've been to, never did I see a light like that. And that's really when I had come to say to the guys, hey, you know what? Maybe there is something to this paranormal parallel stuff, Yeah.
Do you think you experienced missing time?
Well, and that's the other part of this equation. I looked at my watch when we came up that trail, and I said, it's 12. What did I say? It's 1:35. I said, boy, it's 1:34. Time really flies when you're having fun, right? And so that was as we had begun to go around the bend and gone up the trail further. And then after all this, I look at my watch and I'm like, it's only 1:15. The night is young.
Yeah.
So what did we call that, Nathan? It was like a time variant, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. It's almost like you guys were in some sort of, I don't know, I don't like using
other
the
dimension,
vortex or something. Like
we use the vortex.
Right.
We do. Yeah, we say that.
Yeah. If you guys were close, they could hear you, the temperature, the wind, all those variables.
Crazy,
Wow.
man.
When you stepped over that branch, you went through something.
A portal.
Through a portal, through the veil, something.
Yeah, it's, and I know you don't want to go there, but
I went there.
You were there. You couldn't help it. You were there. Yeah. But that's fascinating, though, Eric. The time variance there. I would look into that further.
And you didn't hear that whole part of that story on the other episode that we did, and where I told that story, right?
Yeah, I remember you telling the story in the video that we did ourselves, our video investigation where we were in the Pine Barrens. You told us about that. But
Right.
yeah, I
It
mean, the
didn't
more
make it onto your episode though. Yeah. I
it
got
did.
left on the editing
No,
room floor
no,
again.
you were there. You were there. You didn't see it, but it's there. It's in the episode. But for sure, yeah, because that was a great story. I love that story. The other thing is I would look into more of that time variance because that to me is really fascinating. Where were you and why did that seem to happen right there in that particular situation,
Right.
in that area? You know,
We
I would look into that area to see what's around there.
we have to figure out, you said the ley lines go through that
Right.
area. So maybe we got to figure out, maybe that was exactly where that was.
Oh yeah,
Maybe.
totally.
Could be. Yeah.
Well, this is a process that researchers go through, right? I mean, you guys
Yeah.
are both flesh and blood guys like me initially, right? And then I remember Nathan and I on one of my Jersey Pine Barrens expeditions. It was me and Nathan and Terry and Heather on this team, and we were by one of the little swampy areas that I've done some, night ops on. And you and I were sitting there, and we had this talk. I remember that, and you kind of confessed to me that you were like, hey, let's put out good energy and let's think good thoughts, welcoming thoughts, I said, yeah, okay, let's give it a shot,
Yeah.
And I remember me and you took a hike and left the girls sitting there at base camp where we set up.
Yeah.
And we had something, I think, parallel us a little bit. And
Yeah.
we heard some strange, rustling sounds near us. But I remember even back then, I'm saying, is when we first started discussing doing some of this kind of stuff.
Vibes and energies and
Mm-hmm.
what you put out when you go into the woods is so important, for any type of experience. If you're going out angry or frustrated, you're more likely going to deflect energy, but if you're coming out there with love, peace and gratitude and all those positive feelings, you're going to attract, instead of deflect, I think. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, I like that idea.
One
I
thing
remember. Go ahead, Nathan.
One thing I do remember about your hike that night when you guys got back to the fire, Bob wanted to keep going up the hill. I'm pretty sure Bob said he wanted to keep
he was
hiking.
a diehard, that guy. I couldn't keep up with them. But I told Bob, no, man, I'm over
tired.
50 now.
We got to slow down.
But it's funny.
Some of the stuff, man, I mean, that time variance, that kind of stuff is really fascinating because it's like you hear a lot of this stuff happening a lot to researchers or just people that are in that, and some people that aren't even looking for it. I mean, look at if you guys get a chance, you got to check this out. There's on Discovery Plus, there's a great new 2 documentaries right now on Betty and Barney Hill and Travis Walton.
Okay.
And their stories are there's a lot of new footage and new archival footage that has been found, and just makes you really think there's something going on here. And their hypnosis sessions when Barney and Betty were under hypnosis, they're some of the most terrifying things you'll ever hear. And this guy was so terrified of what was going on and what was happening to them. So
wow.
Yeah, it was
some interesting
it'll bring tears to your eyes. It's that emotional.
Patty wrote, I think Tony and I bring the ghost out.
Yeah. You bring something, that's for sure.
I'll tell you what, and Nathan mentioned it, she's been our good luck charm ever since we met her on Brian's expedition up in New York, and she had her first encounter. And then on the return expedition, when I took her out on my team and we had the thermal hit, right, doing the first water ops that I've always wanted to do. That was cool.
Yes, it was.
Of course, she came down to Jersey afterwards and also brought some good luck down there as well. I'll tell you, we've had some activity, and I don't know if it's because of the the pandemic or the energy that's a result of what's going on, everybody being cooped up and everything else,
People are more heightened too.
Heightened, yeah.
Eric, I have a question for you. I know, like, how long have you been doing this paranormal research and stuff?
Oh man, all my life I've loved the paranormal ever since I was a kid. My dad would tell me stories and just all the stories that we've heard in Bucks County, but seriously have been doing it since 2016.
Okay.
So always loved the paranormal, and I always wanted to do a show where, we as jazz musicians, we play, and this has been going on for years. We'll play a lot of these wonderful like venues, these halls and these concert halls and things like that. And, the booker will tell me about, show us around. And then at the end of the little tour, he'll say, oh, and by the way, it's haunted. So there's always like some kind of ghost story attached to those kinds of things. And a lot of places here in Bucks County, we've got a lot of ties to the Revolutionary War, ties to the Underground Railroad, a lot of Underground Railroad tunnels around this area that we're here, and in your area too. So in 2016, I wanted to start my own show, and I called it Bucks County Paranormal Investigations. And so it's been named that. It's going into, sometimes it's called Eric Mintel Investigates, but it's been fascinating. I mean, the stories that we're telling, and it just boggles my mind. And you guys know this too, that people have no clue what's in their own backyard. Like so much history. It's just great history right in there. And people say all the time, oh, I had no idea that existed, or that was even there. We pass by it every day, but it's like, there's a great story to be told. So that's what we're doing. And it's been great. So now we've got, I don't know, 65 videos out there right now that we're doing. We've got a whole bunch of videos coming up. Dominic and I are going up to Connecticut next month, in the next couple of weeks, to investigate great theater, which I've played, called Cheney Hall. Really cool history and very, very paranormal history. Now, when we go up there, since Dominic is a spirit medium, I will not tell him anything about the history, nothing about the inner workings of what I know from the owner or the guy that's running it now, the director. So when we get up there, I want to see when Dominic tunes into that, and then we corroborate what he's feeling to what's actually going on there. And then we've got some other videos coming up too. I want to do another investigation follow-up in the bowl with you guys. I'd like to do that when it gets a little warmer. Maybe
next week. Yeah. I
So
don't want to interrupt you, but I just forgot to mention that Chris is watching the episode tonight, and she's a paranormal researcher from. She's got her own channel also, Paranormal Descendants, I think it is. But she's been on expeditions with us as well, and so she actually met me through you, Eric. And
cool.
So this whole business we're in with the Bigfoot research and the paranormal research, as we're saying now, Paranormal Parallels.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
it
that.
brings us together. You know what I mean? You mentioned it when we were out at the bowl. Yeah. Because we had the radio start transmitting or changing stations, right?
Crazy. Yeah.
And that never happened before. And so I had said, because Brian had coined the phrase, I say, yeah, it's paranormal parallels. And there definitely is. And it brings people like us together. And through you personally, Eric, I've met so many, interesting people, and what a treat it was to get to record with you guys live in studio with Bill Burns.
Cool. That was so cool.
That was absolutely
you too, man.
treat.
I mean, oh yeah, you too. I mean, you guys are doing the research. You guys are out in the field. I mean, you're bringing tangible evidence to really, it's thought-provoking stuff that you guys are doing. So that's
we like to think so.
Yeah, I mean, we have the evidence right there.
There it is. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
it's right
we've got more than that, right?
Yeah.
Eric, we've got a nod. Thanks to Eric. He's actually his Bucks County Paranormal Investigations. Okay, at BCPI on Facebook. Well, one of our June recording episode where we got together and finally got to do a follow-up, right? He wrote an article and submitted it to Weird New Jersey.
Yeah.
And it's a published article in the newest edition of Weird New Jersey. So I'd like to thank also Mark Moran, right, for joining us that day. And
Mark is great. Mark Sauerman, his partner there. Those guys are great. I mean, and that was what a treat to be in that magazine.
Not only just to be in the magazine, but we're with Mark Moran, the co-founder,
who we just happened, and how do we just happened upon him in the Pine Barrens, man?
Right? I mean, that's a paranormal parallel in itself.
Yeah, it is.
You and I both were like, Mark?
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean,
We thought he was Sasquatch, actually, the way he came walking out all blacked out.
I know, right? Oh my
hat
God.
on, looking all,
But
tough.
you guys, I mean, that's the whole
I was
thing.
gonna pull
You
my
guys-
timber out. And
Yeah, right. That's the thing. You guys are doing the research and making, and giving stories for people to tell too. And that's what we're doing as well. And I mean, I think, and that's how people connect.
I always say to Heather, I'm like a T-Rex. I make shit happen.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. That's right.
So, Eric, we told some stories about our woo type experiences. I mean, do you have any
The audio?
like one particular experience that you?
Oh, you're not
like,
talking to me. You're talking to this
frightened
Eric.
the heck out of you? Yeah, no. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, and this is something when I was a kid, man, it was just, and it still kind of haunts me to this day. And I don't know if it was a dream or what, but I remember just like my mom and dad were going out somewhere, and I don't know if I was even like, I was old enough, but I wasn't old enough to be left alone. So I was what they call back in those days a latchkey kid. I didn't have, I would come home from school and parents weren't there, they were working, so I was there by myself. You too?
Me too.
Yeah. So I remember looking out the window and I saw, and this was at night, and I saw my dad just wave to me, and they got in the car and left. And when I turned around in the house, there was this like shadow figure coming down the hallway, and it was frightening, and it just like, I still could see it clear as a bell. So I don't know what that was. And that was one of the things as early as I could remember. There was another, I mean, I told you the UFO story. That was amazing. And, and just, I mean, and this Dogman encounter was really probably the one that really changed my whole perspective on everything. And this is just, this is fresh. This was a fresh thing that happened to us. And I know everybody on the team was still, shook up about that. So those are just some of the things that we've had. I'll tell you, okay, here's a great story. I won't go too long here, but this was very woo. I was on my way to a gig. Now I don't drink or smoke, never did drugs, nothing. I'm a straight guy. So I'm going to a gig, and I am driving down what's called Pineville Road, and this is like January of 1997, going to a gig, and it's dark because it gets dark early. It's about 5:30, 6 o'clock. The gig's at 7 o'clock. I'm going at a good clip, and all of a sudden, bam, out of nowhere, a deer just jumps out, and I hit it. I felt terrible. I hit this thing, and I slid 60 feet. I was going pretty fast, so I slid, and the roads were a little wet. I slid 60 feet, and the deer kind of went with me. And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, oh man, I felt terrible. I'm looking at, finally I get out of the car, I'm looking at it, and it's just laying there. And out of nowhere, no one's on the road, no one's around, it's pitch black. Out of nowhere, I hear this woman say, "How's your hands?" I'm like,
how's your hands?
What? Because I'm a piano player. I play piano.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, why would she say that? Why? And I look around, and here, I didn't really see a face. I saw this person just come out of nowhere, grabs this deer, this 200-pound deer by the ear, and drags it off the road like it was nothing.
Huh.
And she goes, "You better get off the road." And with that, gone. And I get in my car, I looked around, and nobody, totally disappeared. I was like, what the hell? So the next, I told the guys at the gig what happened. They were like, oh my God, and you could see the front of my car was dented up and whatnot. But I went back the next day to look around and think maybe there's houses there I couldn't see or something. There was nothing there. Completely.
Guardian angel.
That's what I was thinking. I thought maybe it was my guardian angel. And I thought to myself, wow, that was what an experience. And that happened, and it's a true story, man. It was just incredible.
Wow.
Amazing. Wow.
Yeah,
Well, thanks for sharing that with our
Totally.
Squatch Talks podcast. That's awesome. Yeah. Oh, and just for the listeners who are still hanging with us, I appreciate you, hanging in there with us tonight for our premiere kickoff to the Squatch Talks podcast Facebook page. Eric Mintel is going to be appearing on another podcast, and he's invited myself and Art to join him Friday night at 10 p.m. I'm not sure when it's going to air, but it's on Brent Thomas's Paranormal Portals podcast. So that should be fun.
Oh, it's going to be fun. And I think it's live. It goes live on YouTube.
Okay.
It's 10 o'clock our time, but it's 7 o'clock his time. He's in Idaho.
So I'll make sure I post a link so everybody can join in if they wish.
He'll give us that. Yeah, for
that's
sure.
Great.
That'll be fun.
Awesome. Yeah.
Well, you guys are fun to talk with, man. You guys have great ideas. And I mean, it's nice to be able to talk and have different ideas. And it's also nice to have a little bit of skepticism too.
Yeah.
Because if we're all on the same page, well, it doesn't give it that much, to thought-provoking kinds of things,
Well, as Renee this evening, I can't say that I'm completely, convinced or that I've come fully across to the dark side. And Art hates when I say that, but it's not dark. It's not dark necessarily. I'm kidding. It's like the reference what you made earlier before we went live with the the Star Wars thing or whatever. You know what I mean? Like Darth Vader. And
it doesn't mean it's evil. It just means it's over there.
Come to the light. Come to the light. But it's just one of those things that I'm a little, as of yet, unwilling to give up entirely. Through past experiences and speaking to some people that kind of turned me off to it, right? But I'm open to it. And now, after having experienced some odd occurrences, and the light being one of them, the time variant being another, right? All these strange things, and from hearing other people who I do believe and trust and respect, tell me these stories, I have no other option but to say there's that possibility,
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
A lot of the stuff I've never claimed is Bigfoot though either. Some of the things I don't think it has to be Bigfoot, some of the different things I've seen. And if you could come up with something that it is, I'm with you, but
all we can do is really keep connecting and keeping track of these parallels, of these paranormal parallels,
you gotta keep track of the evidence,
I mean, you put two and two together, like what happened to me, okay, if I didn't find footprints or have something, or if something wasn't stalking you and your daughter at base camp, or if things weren't thrown, like if all that stuff hadn't happened in the same area, then I probably wouldn't be putting two and two together and thinking it was more of a ghostly thing,
Right.
But and knowing that other people have stories of cloaking and things heard but not seen.
Maybe that's what that mist is too. Maybe they're cloaking.
That's why that could be another thing.
Yeah.
Manifesting the energy or pulling the energy from the air, or who knows?
Eric's like, no, they're not.
No, I'm all open, all ears, and willing to keep going out there and doing what we do. And that's the thing, we really do give it an effort, and we're out there doing it consistently. So if anybody's going to find these answers out, it'll be us.
That's right.
That'd be great. Well,
Okay.
I really encourage people to check out some of our videos, if you don't mind me plugging.
No, I was about to. That's where I was leading.
I mean, we if you get on Facebook here, it's Bucks County Paranormal Investigations.
I put the link on already.
And you got it. Okay.
Yeah, man.
We've got a lot. Thank you. And we've got a lot of really great videos that we just did, and some recent ones that are really, really great. I mean, we caught some unbelievable footage. So
one of your best responding, or what's the word I should say? One of the best responses you've gotten to some of your videos was Bigfoot in the Pine Barrens, actually.
Oh yeah. That was
I encourage you to continue to,
Yeah, of course, man. That's why I said we got to do another follow-up investigation there, because people want to know. And we actually, on the very first investigation we did with Mark. Remember, we talked with David Dover, which he and his wife had that encounter. Well, his wife saw it in the rearview mirror, and you were on site, like literally what?
Art and I were there the next day, man. We were right on target. Yep.
So it's that kind of thing that, what Brian's talking about and what Nathan's talking about is we've got to keep that going, like that immediate response type thing.
The momentum,
the momentum of it, and keep it going, and also to support one another too. Because you're gonna have, I'm gonna have cases up here hey, I'm going to refer them to you, and vice versa.
And vice versa. Sure.
You know, and it really works out well that way for everybody concerned. And plus, you want to work with people that you like and can trust.
And that's why we complement one another so well, because, you know, we've got Brian in New York, Nathan and you in PA. Here I am in New Jersey. So we've got some ground to cover, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, and this is the first time I met Nathan and Brian tonight, you know, and this is great. You know, when you have a great connection with people, I mean, great energy, you could tell right away with these guys. So it's you got a great team.
Thank you.
And
Well,
good luck
thank
with
you.
your, and good luck
I was
with
thinking
your,
the same.
yeah, thank you, man. And good luck with your back tomorrow there, Nathan.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Nathan, keep everybody watching. Please keep Nathan in your prayers tomorrow.
Yeah.
He's going to be undergoing his back surgery. So hopefully
That's
he'll have a
right.
speedy recovery, and the surgeons and
excited.
staff's hands will be guided with skill, you know,
Exactly.
and he'll be
Absolutely.
out in the field with us again very soon. And
Right.
again, I just want to thank Eric for coming on into our
Oh, man.
initial live stream, Squatch Talks podcast here on the new page. And we're going to air this at 8:00, as we've been doing on YouTube,
Right.
with some final editing. And hopefully I'll make it onto the final product this time, and we'll wind up on the editing room floor
On the floor
But-
again.
But no, I want to thank all our listeners and viewers, and you know, everybody
Yeah.
who stuck with us from the beginning. It's only been about a month and a half, but we're very happy to continue doing this. So please give us a sub or a like or a follow, whichever, you know, modality we're on at the time, and hit the notification bell, right? And we always say in unison, right, Nathan? Subscribe. You guys got to get
We
this
got
down.
it.
Come on.
I know. Yeah. Don't forget to
In
check
unity, right?
out. Don't forget to check out Eric Mintel's stuff.
At
And,
BCPI. Okay.
And I'll get yelled at. He hasn't said anything yet, but my brother-in-law, I'm sure he's going to want to go out. If we could arrange
Oh,
something.
Brian. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, he loves doing the paranormal investigations.
Totally.
We'd love to come out sometime with you, Eric.
Oh, definitely, man.
do
Absolutely, man.
something. That'd be great.
Yeah, I got a
Absolutely.
ghost box. I got a ghost box. Come on.
There you go.
I'm ready
There
to
you go.
go.
Absolutely, man.
And Chris and Art and I actually put it to use a few times, and I'm still learning how to use it. But you know, I'm open to things, and you know, hopefully, I'll go from being the Renee of the group to the Cliff. I was going to say Bobo, but I don't know if I want to be the Bobo of the group.
Don't do that.
Love you, Bobes. So no, this was a great episode. I don't know. I don't have as much experience with these live streams and video recording sessions like you do, Eric. I don't want to make it too long so people doesn't want to watch it, because oh my God, it's 2 hours long. I mean, you know. So about an hour and a half into this, I think it's a good time that we call it a night.
All right.
And
Yep.
and thank everyone again for watching and for subscribing, and remember, at BCPI, at
Absolutely.
Squatch Talks Podcast, and we're going to have the links and everything on our YouTube page and on our Facebook page. So thanks everyone for listening, and you guys.
Yep.
See you guys. What a
Take care,
pleasure.
folks. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, guys. What a pleasure.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
All right.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Squatch Talks Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, and give us a like, and stay tuned for more exciting stories on Squatch Talks.